Part 1. Parents. So long, farewell. November 30th, 1983. Mathilde's father, James Spicer, had been the last person she'd known to use a shoehorn and a handkerchief, archaic tools gone the way of arrowheads and telegrams. He'd been an art dealer. Mathilde's father, who'd been polite when sober, was square-headed with big and fat feet, who'd worn a camel-colored coat and hat, which he'd always tip in elevators. Mathilde's father, who smelled like ash, pastrami, and melancholy. They had a routine. Every work evening she'd hear the door unfasten in their apartment. She'd yell, "Daddy's coming home!" He'd say, "Hello, Boots," because of how he'd claim she was only as tall as the tops of his boots. Her mother, Judy Spicer, would hover in the next room like a minor character in a play. "Daddy's coming home," and he'd open the door and he'd come home. "Boots," he'd say, "what was the very best part of your day?" He'd pull her onto his lap. He'd squeeze between the backs of her shoulders, the place where wings would have sprouted if humans grew wings. Mathilde would say, "This minute." She loved him as fiercely as a daughter could love her father, even one who was acquainted with his flaws, such as the nights he came home knee-deep in his scotch, burping and slurrily calling her roots instead of boots. "Daddy's coming home," and he'd open the door and he'd come home. If she were lucky, he'd be sober. She wasn't always lucky. Regardless, it was good to have a father in the house. When Mathilde's father suffered a heart attack on the 2 train coming home from work, she'd been in the middle of a rehearsal. Mathilde was 16, and her father had been 44. She was Liesel in the Lycée Français de New York's production of The Sound of Music. She was lucky because Jack Jetter was cast as Rolf. Rolf and Liesel were in love. Mathilde had always fancied Jack, who was a grade older, but truly fell in an incurable love at their high school homecoming dance. This was 4 months before. The song playing in the background had been the Supremes' "Baby Love." Jack had pressed his cheek against hers, half a head and a mouth taller. When the song was over, he kissed her forehead, sputtered a raspberry on her left ear. "You're going to make some man very lucky someday. I'm already jealous." Someday a man would love her. Mathilde couldn't imagine making anybody lucky, let alone a man. Maybe he loves me, she fooled herself. Except why can't he be that man? The next morning, Mathilde heard the same song on the radio, her favorite golden oldies station, counting the times Diana Ross sang "Baby." There were 12 different babies Diana crooned after the other, 12 babies clunking like pennies, waiting to be wishes at the bottom of a fountain. "Baby, baby, baby," Mathilde shimmied, at home with the silvery superfluousness of her own voice. 12 was the magic number. If Jack's picture appeared in the yearbook 12 times, it meant he loved her. If she saw him 12 times that week in the hallway, it meant he loved her. But 12 was an unkind number, spare and rationed. In order to get to 12, you had to go 1 and 2 and so on, and before you knew it, you lost it to 13. Mathilde wasn't sure if each baby referred to a different beloved, whom Diana must have loved at some point, but now could not differentiate from the next baby, or to just one sweetheart she felt compelled to repeat 12 times over. Some wheeling form of melodic echolalia sent infections masked as energies through Mathilde's eardrum. Had Mathilde really fallen in love? Mathilde thought of each baby crying in her arms, 12 babies calling her a naive little schoolgirl who should not even pretend to know what love was. Jack fed Mathilde's fancy the next 4 months during rehearsals, insisting they get into character by repeating dialogue that Liesel and Rolf would have said to each other, but that wasn't in the script, calling it method. "Liesel," Jack told Mathilde, "I love you.